Chapter 4. The Jabberwock and the Fool. Far beneath the crest of the world, where the roars in the cliffs lost their ferocity, their faint humming blended well with the crackling of the lit braziers whose ambient glow comforted a king buried within his consciousness. Only the tender voice of his lady-love was powerful enough to yank him free of its dank and dark recesses. "There you are, darling. I was curious where you slinked off to," she said, easing into the room so as not to surprise him. "I'm sorry, dear. I didn't want to wake you with my wandering mind," he replied, lifting his chin from his hands to see her taking up floor space in front of him. "Bold of you to assume your mind is any busier than mine," she laughed before commenting on his posture. "You look tired." "War is a sleepless affair," he addressed, readjusting to appear straighter. Do you think your brother shares that sentiment?" She delved ponderingly. I don't know," he answered tentatively, sensing an internalized frustration. "Well, this needs to be said," she sighed. "I didn't like how antagonistic he was during the council meeting today. My brother is so critical of me because he cares. He is as afraid as the rest of us. It's just how he expresses it," the king vindicated. "I imagine it quite sobering to learn you're electing to lose a king, and at the same juncture losing a brother. Family. And the girls, they'll be orphaned. Who would outrightly support that?" "I would, for the sake of my husband, and so will your daughters, to be attentive to the father they love so dearly," the queen opposed suddenly, moving toward and climbing the shallow steps of the throne's platform. She disintegrated to his level, nearly planting her head in his lap, which was uncharacteristic, given her distinction and the lavish dress she wore. "Don't you see how eager they are for the chance to follow in your footsteps and make you proud? Or is that what's ailing you?" The intensity that burned in her made him sheepish, feeling a firm and sincere hand constrict his leg. "Accepting death with my grace and dignity whole won't lessen the shame I feel for my past." "Do you love your father?" she asked forthrightly. "Before he made the choices that took him, did you love him?" "Of course I do. Why would you even—" he exclaimed, offendedly. "You love him, but hate his mistakes," she cut to her point, playing with his fingers to medicate its sting. "So, you changed. You live under a cloud of guilt for them, but they are not your legacy. Your daughters may hate the honesty, but what's more important is that they don't repeat 2 generations' worth, which has nothing to do with their adoration for you." "Fetch the girls for me, will you?" he retorted coldly, striving to distance himself from the subject. "At this ungodly hour?" the queen tittered dubiously. "Surely your colloquy can wait the few short hours till morning." She sought to beguile him into returning to bed together, but was foiled by viper-like hostility. "I've asked you to bring them here. Now do as I say before the courage leaves me." She scoffed at his abrasiveness, letting a slight grin cross her quivering lip. She could have gotten angry over him speaking to her that way, but instead identified it as a sign of the true duress the fear of judgment for his wrongdoings had put him under. Like a doting maid, she reacted by leaning in and kissing his forehead, then strolled out to complete her given chore. The queen reappeared promptly, shepherding the groggy pupils. Red was the leader, rubbing one eye and trying to fix the tangles in her hair. It didn't do much good, seeing how she went from standing to crawling and laid vertically across the steps. Both of White's eyes were closed, giving the impression she was sleepwalking. She drug her feet without stumbling, and sprawled out on the platform itself, resting her head next to the king's feet. "I trust the bishop has taught you the balances of magic, has he not?" he asked indirectly. "Taught us and made us recite them until we had them memorized." White grumbled in annoyance, searching for a comfortable position. "What are they?" he tested. Since she was unable to doze off again, Red wobbled up the steps and brushed the wrinkles out of her gown as though she was about to deliver a speech to a grand audience. "The balance of existence states the magics were crafted as equals, both being essential for retaining a peaceful and harmonious flow within our world." "Correct. And the other?" he asked, goading White with his foot to join and answer next. As her sister sat cross-legged beside her, White groaned and tested her way to her backside, standing from there, recollecting with all her might. "The balance of power states that the gifted shall practice and master only one of the magics. Simultaneous involvement unwarranted by the gray gods will end in severe punishment." "Very good," he praised with an impressed chuckle. "Did you summon us just to quiz us, Father?" Red yawned, keeping the flattery brief and prompting White to copy her pose. "No, I need to explain something about your grandfather," the king said candidly. "A story about grandfather? I love those!" White exclaimed giddily, misconstruing his meaning. "Not a story, my jewels. The truth," he revised. "Something you deserved to know long ago. You see, your grandfather wasn't just the king of Wonderland before me. He was the first. Before that, the people referred to the balances to govern themselves, and obtained the harmony you mentioned by inheriting the knowledge that the magic's cycle is present in all things. Life begets death, death breeds destruction, and from its ashes, life is born anew. But with time, in some, the desire to sustain it eroded into a lust for more. They began to see the others as weak, unneeded, and sought to solely perpetuate the flow. This belief caused unrest to spread throughout the villages and tribes, dividing the people and erupting into a civil war for supremacy. Your grandfather, a young and very capable swordsman, enlisted on behalf of the light, and established quite the reputation in thwarting the darkness. Earning the love and respect of the people, he was unanimously chosen to be Wonderland's inaugural patriarch. In his first decree as king, he exiled the survivors to the Selbotic lands, beyond the cliffs. Additionally, having experienced its malicious misuse during the war and finding no value in its presence, he forbade the practice of their death magic in his kingdom. So he restored order to Wonderland. He's a hero, Red bragged with esteem. He was once, yes, the king partially agreed. It took many years for Wonderland to heal from her ordeal, but his victory awarded the chance it needed to start. He was a fair and honored king, blessed with an era free of famine, pestilence, and conflict larger than trivial disputes squashed by attentive mediation. The kingdom and balance were healthy, but the longer he remained in power untried, the harder it proved to relinquish. No prophecies nor gossip indicated his reign would end in the present, but he was manically paranoid, like poison to his own mind, anticipating a threat that could arrive and take it from him. He was incensed by the unknown horrors that lurked in the Selbotic lands. He left to fester and convinced the gods were withholding secrets. Barricaded in his private chambers, he barely ate. He hardly slept. He didn't do anything that distracted from keeping watch for either the future bringer or his banished prisoners. He isolated himself for days at first, with sparse communication. Then, it would be weeks before anyone in the castle saw him, but you could hear him in there, having conversations with himself. Except they weren't conversations, more like heated rants. You could hear him saying that he needed to protect his kingdom and the sons he reared to carry on his name, but he wasn't strong enough. He didn't possess the magic to do it, so your grandfather abused the second balance. He attempted the Infinita Venatus Cursus on his own. Unfortunately, I have to wrap this episode up with only one chapter because I looked ahead here and the following one is utterly massive. And I tried recording with both chapters in a single video and it just went way too long. So this chapter will stand on its own and the next one will as well, because it's way too big to fit into one video collectively. So I hope you enjoyed this shorter chapter, and we will see you in the next episode.